so. But you never know. I mean, today could be my lucky day.
The only thing you don't want to catch is a cold.
Hey! I got a bite! Boy, do I have a bite!
Hold it on, Joe. You got a big one, baby. Hold on to it now.
You want to fight?
I know what you're thinking. Another YouTube channel, about movies. But hold on a second. Before you change the channel, let me tell you, our goal is to make this one of the best YouTube channels about movies on the entire web, and we've worked really hard for that. Let me start. I'm Paul again. I live in South Carolina. I am counting down the days until retirement.
You, you're cool, and you, I'm out.
I'm a boomer, all right? And that's important because of this whole generational difference sitting here at the table. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, go Bucks, and our family used to operate a business that was located in the same building as the Southern Hotel. And the Southern Theater was right there. And so my mom every day would give me money and send me next door to, it was a grindhouse back then, so they would show 2 or 3 movies every single day. And so I grew up on Hammer films, on Jerry Lewis, on Elvis. That's where my love of film emerged.
Yeah, and I from the moment I was born, I remember being in love with movies, and particularly starting off with like kung fu and action movies. I don't know why that is, because they're pretty terrible now. But you know, a lifelong love of movies, and you know, an opportunity to talk about them. You know, so I've totally forgot.
Why are we doing
Why are we doing this?
Isn't anybody going to help that poor man?
Hush, Harriet, that's a sure way to get him killed.
We're doing this because, you know, this is kind of something we've been talking about for a while, and we kind of already do this. We just don't turn the camera on for it. And maybe it's an opportunity to engage with some other people in film and movies and all that kind of good stuff.
Let me translate what he just said. I desperately desire to spend time with my father, who is aging at a rapid pace, and I'm just afraid that his life is almost gone, and I want to enjoy those last days or months together.
Oh my gosh! My dad would never do that. He loved me.
I also think there's something to be said about this generational difference. I'll tell you that this guy sitting right here is not your typical millennial. And he's seen movies, and we exposed him to a lot of movies that perhaps a lot of millennials hadn't seen. Mm-hmm. And I, on the other hand, sort of lived through all of that. I am somewhat immersed in the films of today, but certainly not more. I found out most of the movies, he'll say, hey, have you seen this trailer, that trailer? No, I don't sort of go out and look for trailers. So he turns me on to a lot of stuff, like Cocaine Bear, which we just saw, kind of stuff.
You talk about being introduced to, different films that maybe the kid my age wouldn't normally have been introduced to. But what's strange in my life, I feel like I've had sort of like a renaissance of popcorn movies in my life when you talk about like the trailers that I'm into. So I've gone almost the opposite way. And most people start with the popcorn stuff and move to the indie stuff. And I've kind of switched back and forth now.
There's a story when he was little. We rented Desperado. Antonio Banderas and I'm blocking on Selma Hayek. Okay,
I'm not blocking on that one.
Well, y'all know the scene that we're talking about.
You play something?
No.
Come on, let me help you.
No.
I had seen it before, and so I would always, when it got to that scene, I would put it on pause and then maybe send him, hey, go get your dad a Coke or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then he would come back and I would fast forward it.
You sit on a throne of lies.
It wasn't until he was like 20 years old and he finally saw the whole movie. And
that's not the first time that's happened. That happened with Dusk Till Dawn as well.
Oh, with
the scene outside the biker bar.
Well, why should you take your time and unless you're at work right now watching this, which, hey, stick on.
That's cool with me.
Why should you stay on board for the ride? Well, I really do think that one of the things that makes this difference is this whole generational gap between us, is how boomers and millennials approach it. And we're going to look at movies past, present, and future.
Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads.
We're going to think about how movies affected us, how it informed our culture, why we watch movies over and over again, what makes a perfect movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wrote it on my hand, but then I washed it.
And each week, the centerpiece of this is going to be what we call the sevens, the top 7 movies.
There can be only one.
And we're going to start at 7, and we're going to go up. We don't know. We don't talk about this, so I don't know what he's going to pick, and he doesn't know what I'm going to pick. And what we hope happens if you watch this, we might turn you on to something you've never seen.
It might happen. Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
And you could turn us on to things and recommendations. We love that. We want new ideas.
Absolutely.
So the last thing is we really want your input and your suggestions on this. And down the road, we hope to actually invite people to come on as guest hosts. So send us a note that you're interested in doing this and what topic you might want to explore. So think about this, and if you're interested and you'd like to be on the show, once you get your dad or your son together, then simply write out your name and address on a postcard and tape that to the top of a 70-inch plasma screen television and email or send that to us on the address that's listed at the bottom of your screen. And we hope to see you along for the ride. Mm-hmm. And we'll have other opportunities like this because we only need one plasma screen TV. What else do you need?
I mean, I got a bathroom.
All right. So, in closing, we're going to drop a new episode every week on this. Try to be very, very consistent. And so, do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it. Show your dad, and if you're a dad watching this, grab your son kind of thing and sort of talk about those generational differences. Do you want to do a 7?
Come on, hit the line, get in line. What is this, guys? We got to put on a show. I thought you were professionals.
Number 7. All right, I think this is obvious. You need a good supporting cast for your movies. Obviously, a lead is one thing, but a good supporting cast, I'm a particular fan of like ensemble casts. So when you have 10, 12 good character actors in there, that helps. Obviously, this is a little far down the list, but I think it's super important, especially when we get mini-series in these large movies. You need a good supporting cast.
I agree. I'll go with that.
Oh, I know you agree.
All right.
I'm right all the time.
Well, let's see if you'll go with this. Number 7. anything without Will Ferrell or Kevin James. I'm sorry. I just, there's only one movie that I've really passively enjoyed Will Ferrell in, and that was Jay and Silent Bob, Take Back Hollywood?
Strike Back.
Strike Back. You know. And there was the one that he did where he was camped out in his front lawn.
Everything Must Go.
Yeah, I like, but I don't like anything Kevin James has ever done, and so yeah.
I agree with Kevin James.
So if you're out there producing and you want an Oscar, number 7's lock you in.
Yeah. Number 6. I feel like a butthole now because of your first one. You need a timeless story or a lesson that resonates with viewers. This isn't necessarily that you need to, you know, like a Catcher in the Rye type story, but you need something to resonate with viewers. I'm not going to go to the movie theater and watch Teletubbies because that doesn't resonate with me. You need something reasonably relatable for your audience.
If Teletubbies was starring
Kevin Smith or Kevin James and Will
no,
Ferrell.
but you know, Dustin Hoffman or Al Pacino, would you watch it?
The Usual Suspects as Teletubbies.
Did he mention Kaiser Soze?
Who's Kaiser Sose?
Who's Kaiser Soze?
My number 6 is more serious, right?
Thank you.
And it kind of goes along with what he says. We learn something. You know, I like seeing movies exposed to something that I've never seen before. So if if you're dealing with coal mines and you see the coal mine and what the life of a coal miner is, or I don't know, astronauts or an accountant, just something that's new, exposing you to a new world, a new idea. It's always kind of nice. I don't want to see the same things over and over again.
I would actually agree with that, and that's personally why I think the beginning of movies I like better, because the world building and you kind of get introduced to all the characters, and that's. Number 5. Okay, the producer, filmmakers, they need to care. If they don't care, the movie's not going to be good. I don't care who wrote it. Mario Puzo's Godfather. If they don't care about it, it's not going to be good.
How do you know if they don't care?
Because you can feel the heart and the soul of the movie. You can always tell. For a perfect instance of this was the Justice League movie. When they released the Hollywood release of it, it lacked heart and soul. And then the Snyder release, it seemed to breathe some of that back into it. And if that's not like a perfect example of it.
I agree. We just watched Dungeons and Dragons this last weekend. And for a movie all about magic, there's no magic in it. There's no heart and soul. And I know that on Rotten Tomatoes, it's like off the chart, but I didn't.
It seemed to pander.
And I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons either, and I give it that, so.
Yeah, it seemed to pander.
Yeah. A perfect movie, I think you need to go into it pretty much unknown. And that's the problem with trailers that show too much.
That's a good one.
And I want to go in and not already know what the story is and who the bad guy is and stuff. And so for that reason, I love trailers. But there's something about just going in and just being, I didn't know. I've never been to, I know that sometimes in big cities they'll have these premieres, but you don't know who it is.
It's like a blind
You
premiere.
walk into it, yeah, that would be fascinating to do that.
enjoy that.
You don't know if it's a horror movie or a comedy or whatever. We went to Dusk to Dawn. My wife loves George Clooney. And I said, oh, we got to go. We got to go. Oh, Sheila, George Clooney, oh, I'm up for it. Well, we went to this. We're living in Cleveland then. And we went to this thing. And I could tell she's kind of liking it. As soon as the vampires, it takes a hard right at Horror Town, I could see her. She says,
life leave her body.
And then she thought, okay, you didn't tell me that, because she hates horror movies. So, yeah, so that was an example that was a sneak preview for her. All right.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. Because a lot of time, it sort of, especially with the Marvel movies, how many trailers do they cut? They cut 10 different versions of this trailer. It starts with 6 seconds and works its way up to a 5.5-minute trailer that has credits and a director. And you know too much. Perfect example. I went on a date with a girl and went and saw Insidious, and I didn't know, had never saw a trailer for it, knew nothing about it at all, saw it, and that's probably one of the reasons why I actually like that movie, because there's no predispositions going into it. You have no clue, waiting for an actor to show up in the third act who's on the bill that you didn't see before, or some fight scene that you saw in the trailer that's not there.
Let me go back to something. You went on a date with a girl.
Emotional damage.
I was going to have on the screen at the end of this thing, 1-800-DATE-MY-SON.
Yeah.
Operators are standing by to take your order and rush deliver this entire wealth-building system right to your door.
Number 4. Good writer, good script, good story to evolve from. Not necessarily the original script, but you need a good story, or else, I mean, obviously, it's the entire basis of whatever we're watching. You need a good story. If there's no good story, and that doesn't mean it can't be simple,
Right.
12 Angry Men, phone booth, whatever. It can be simple, but you need a good story, bottom line.
Number 4 for me is a great score. I love film music. I collect film music. Not necessarily the background music, the source music with whatever pop song happens to be. But I think that a good score can draw you in. A good score can also distract you as well. But I really like that.
I think there's an art too to the person that selects the songs, not necessarily the score building, but you owe it to yourself to do the film justice and not pick a top 40 song.
And who are you thinking about right now? Because I think we're thinking the same person.
I probably not.
Scorsese.
No, I'm thinking of bad music at this point. I'm not thinking of good music, but immediately I would think Scorsese, because he's a master of picking a different song. Of Goodfellas, when they're finding all the dead guys, and it's this really upbeat song. He's a master of that. But I was thinking about that.
I read that he has the songs before, and he's sort of he cuts the scene specifically for that.
He's not the only director that I think does that. I'm sure Tarantino does some similar stuff where he'll think of a specific song and write with it.
And sometimes his songs, speaking of Tarantino, was in, what's the one, the Western?
Oh, Hateful Eight.
No.
Django.
Yeah. He does Jim Croce's "I Got a Name," and it's certainly out of context with the time, but you're sitting in the theater and it comes on and say, okay, this is from the '70s. I can dig that. I'm thinking, wait a minute, but it worked perfectly.
Well, he was able. There's more than a few rap songs in that as well that actually really work. Number 3. You need a good lead actor. You need a star. You need someone to carry it. Doesn't mean you don't need Christian Bale every time, but I need a lead. I need someone. Someone's going to be on screen. I got to stare at them. They need to be good.
I miss Gene Hackman. I mean, I'm not talking about the YouTube video of him going through a drive-through and getting a burger, the one that was just on. I really do. He's one of my favorite actors.
Oh, he's a great actor.
93 years old. So
he's an amazing actor.
Yeah, he was good in everything that he ever did. Yeah, Michael Caine kind of thing. These
Yeah.
are older guys.
Oh, yeah.
But I agree with you. I agree that my number 3 is I don't want the movie to market to me.
Absolutely.
And I'm afraid that, I don't want a movie that you believe that it was a Hollywood accountant making the decisions. And it kind of started, I remember it starting back in the 80s, whatever was the top pop performer going on right now, we need to have a tie-in with that. And we have a toy tie-in.
Vanilla Ice and the Ninja Turtles.
Yes. And I just think, no, it's that's driving it in the different direction, And so I don't want to, I don't want to be marketed to. And I'm not talking, there's product placement, and sometimes it's so obvious that I was just watching something the other day, and there was a police station, and it had the soda machine, and all of the buttons that you push were generic, and it was refreshing instead of saying Coke, 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 or Pepsi, Pepsi, Pepsi.
Yeah.
And I love Coke and Pepsi, but I don't like that. And I also don't like when we are marketed to the demographics of the audience. And the last Jurassic Park movie, so it was supposed to have been the last one.
Yeah.
I felt like we had sufficient cast.
Yeah.
That we didn't need
to add the young,
and we added, and they did a great job. But I kept in my mind, I'm watching them thinking they just know that they want to draw in a younger audience, and so they need to put somebody younger in the screen to make that happen. Same thing happened with the Shia LaBeouf, is that how you say that? And the Indiana Jones thing. I was like, no, I just make a great movie, and the audience will find you. Don't try to find the audience and then fix the picture to that.
Absolutely. Any decision that you make for your film that is against making it better from a purely a storytelling standpoint is a no-go. Number 2. It's a film, so the visuals matter. You need a good director / cinematographer, not necessarily separate from one another, but if they can work together to be, the sum of two parts is greater than the whole, or whatever you say that. But you need that. You got to tell the visual story, because there's a difference between setting a camera up and just like telling a story like a sitcom versus, the visual aspect of storytelling and the mise-en-scène and the camera angles and symbolism and all that other stuff. There's so many layers to add to that. I mean, it's the difference between, some Joe Schmo doing Full House and Francis Ford Coppola, There's a difference. And
I totally agree. But sometimes the visuals are hollow unless you have, in my opinion, the heart and all that kind of stuff. An example is the visuals in Dungeons and Dragons. If you turn the sound off and just sort of watch those visuals, sometimes it's kind of stunning.
It's pretty to look at.
Yeah, but to me, it was just the whole thing was hollow. I just didn't.
Because you don't care about what's happening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. My number 2 is, I think to make a perfect movie, it needs to be different and unexpected. I just don't, I don't want to go to a movie and see the same movie over and over and over again, even though it's called something different, it's got a different cast. And redoing films, reboots, that kind of
Remakes.
stuff. I want something that I've never seen before, something totally, ultimately, like Die Hard was somewhat of an original movie, and I liked that, and that was enjoyable and saw it in the thing. But now let's redo Die Hard. So now we have Die Hard on a boat, and we had that with Steven Seagal, and that was an okay movie as well.
It's Under Siege.
But,
It's Under Siege.
Yeah. I really, what I want is something when I go in and say, I have never seen this before. And so it's that first time. It's the movie that somebody goes in and pitches in Hollywood, I suspect, because I've never done that. I really don't know how it works. But hey, it's just like this, or think this. So we are up to, this is the number 1. That's why I can't wait to see what your number 1 is.
Man, I had something to say on that one, and I forgot what I was going to say.
Something new and different, unexpected.
Yeah, I had something. I don't know what I was going to say.
Today, Junior.
Oh, okay, I remember that. So that's exactly the reason why Liam Neeson movies, I have no desire to watch them. Because once The Equalizer 1 came out, I swear on my life he did 7, 8 movies in a row where he's finding his daughter from someone they kidnapped.
It's not called Equalizer, is it?
Or not The Equalizer, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The Equalizer, that's with Denzel
Washington.
and Queen Latifah. But you know what I'm talking about, where he's Taken.
Taken
2, Taken 14.5.1.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean you can't have sequels.
No, and it doesn't mean that some of those movies aren't good.
Lord of the Rings.
But I'm not interested in finding out and sifting through which ones are good and which ones aren't good. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll go watch John Wick because I know that John Wick's going to be good.
Yeah, can't wait.
That's my 2 cents. Number 1. You need movie magic. Number 1 thing. And it's Spielberg. That's sort of what I mean. When you watched his movies, E.T., the Stand By Me, there is magic in those movies. And it's the kind of thing where, I feel like I want to go sit up in front of the TV and kick my feet up and watch it. And oh, it's so pretty, E.T. phone home. There's magic in the movies. And that, I think, is what most film is devoid of now. Complete and utterly devoid.
I totally agree.
Get on with it.
Yes, get on with it.
It's when you're in the theater, you're not thinking about your popcorn, you're not thinking about the seat, you're not singling out any one element. It's like, oh, I really like the music here, or look at this. But you are immersed in it. It's if you're in it and it's happening, and then it's later when you're out of the theater.
You're just like, oh.
Yeah, now you're thinking, and maybe on the second viewing, now you're paying attention to this camera angle or that thing or whatever, or this performance, or you pick up things that you missed before. I totally agree.
When we watched the last M. Night Shyamalan movie, I'm not saying that's a perfect movie by any nature, but that was a movie where I remember just kind of leaning forward in my seat and just kind of zoned into it and really sucked into what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you're not worried about what you're sitting. I remember we saw a Star Wars movie in theaters the second or third one. And I remember so bad that I keep having to shift in my seat because my butt's getting numb. And I've never had to worry about that in a movie before. And it was just because it was so bad.
What do you think where the best place to watch movies?
I really like the local theater that I go to that has the reclining seats and stuff. But I really like your room upstairs is pretty nifty. But I think movies are made to be seen on the big screen.
I totally agree. I hate the fact that we're moving towards more of an online streaming kind of stuff.
Part of me understands that. Part of the purist in me understands that. But then part of the greedy, like young Gen Zer, that I want the movie now and I want to watch it right now. So I want to watch it on my phone in the closet, streaming it a cam copy on some website. You know.
Yeah. Back in the 80s, they used to have what are called revival houses. And I love these. They had one in Minneapolis. And it was every single day, they would put out a calendar. Castro Street Theater in San Francisco, similar kind of thing, where they would show different movies, and they're older movies. Now they sometimes have newer ones, to be able to go in and maybe one week you can see, 2 or 3 James Bond movies or whatever, all, animated films. They usually have a theme to it. There's something about seeing a movie on a big screen. There was a movie back in the 70s called That's Entertainment. Did you ever see it?
I've never heard of it.
Of course you didn't.
Yeah.
You know why?
Because it sucked?
Well, no, because it was one of the major films that year. It's celebrating MGM, especially musicals and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And I grew up with Wizard of Oz. You've seen Wizard of Oz, and you've seen it on television. And we used to have a black and white TV, so we didn't know it was in color, right? And
follow the what color road?
Well, they used to have this thing. I swear, on the beginning of they say, you're going to see the Wizard of Oz, and you will notice that partway into the film, it will switch to color, And so I'm sitting there like this. And it never happened. And then, of course, you had a black and white TV.
Whoops.
Yeah. And so, but in the 70s, I saw That's Entertainment. And it's just, they show clips, and they talk about all of this history, this record that they have of MGM, and they had a scene from The Wizard of Oz, and it was in full color on the big screen, and my chin dropped. Because I knew that movie so well, I'd seen it so many times. To see it, I thought, this is why movies are, it changed the whole experience. That's what I prefer the really, 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 really big screens instead of they chop it up into 15 and you get one that's a little more than what you got.
It's like we went and saw Hateful Eight, the 70mm Panavision version. Like that was awesome. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really, really like that movie is because the first time we saw it, I just remember being in there just like stunning. It's like 20 minutes of the credits at the beginning and it's just escapes.
I agree. And that leads me to my number one. And you did your number one, right?
I did.
All right. My number one, which you listed, but it was way further down. So clearly you are wrong.
Ah! 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 Ah!
My number one.
I'll tell you you're wrong, but I'll do it after the camera's off. Come back with a black eye.
Story, story, story.
Okay.
That's what makes a perfect movie, right?
Whoop-de-doo! What does it all mean, Basil?
You can have great acting, no story. You can have good visuals, you can have special effects, whatever. It needs to be a good story. Big stories, little stories. And I think sometimes that we've lost that. Let me give you an example. And it's part of what, like with the Marvel universe and the Marvel films. These are epics, right? These are these massive, But when I was coming up, we also had these epics. I think of something like Lawrence of Arabia. And the difference, in my opinion, between what's the one with the glove? The
Infinity War?
Yeah, between that and Lawrence of Arabia is it really comes down to story. The visuals in Lawrence of Arabia are amazing. The acting is absolutely some of the best ever put on film. The music it takes you to another dimension. It draws you in. A long movie, and it says something. It's a historical movie. That is the epic. That 2001 Space Odyssey, Sound of Music. Those were these big movies. Yeah, but today, but I think sometimes the story is weaker, and it's really more about effects and action and all the Fast and Furious kind of stuff. I want a story that does all of the things I said. It transforms me. I don't know. It shows me something different. I care about the characters. You know, I love them. When they die, I cry. So, yeah.
I agree. I think, though, the difference when you get, like, especially with something like Lawrence and Arabia and before versus MCU and Fast and Furious, I think they're a little bit different in that the MCU isn't necessarily just about the movies. It's also about the comic books in and I'm not saying that you should have to understand the comic books to enjoy it, but I do think that those tales are so like overarching that in order to enjoy it to its fullest, you have to watch everything. You have to watch all the movies and keep up with it. And if not, then I definitely think your capacity for enjoying that is going to be hampered by not knowing the little things that maybe make it something that I enjoy versus what you enjoy. But I do agree in the fact that special effects have caused an issue in sort of like a disconnect between making a good story with good special effects and not a story based solely around special effects.
I agree.
But I would say that if they did Lawrence of Arabia today, they would use a lot of special effects.
Yeah, and The Rock would probably pay.
Peter O'Toole.
We need to put that on the list, an episode where I convince the world that the greatest comic book movie ever made was Superman with Christopher Reeves. And nothing will ever touch that.
Right.
Me and the rest of reality, we'll let you know you're wrong afterwards.
DC all the way. Superman. All right. So if the folks at DC out there are watching this, 70-inch plasma screen TV.
He's got a couple of ideas. He said he can fix Superman.
Oh, I'm telling you, I can fix Superman. All right. Well, I had fun. Do you have fun? You want to do this again?
I'm going to tell you what you think when I turn the camera off.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
All right. Well, stop back in, and like I say, every week we're going to drop a new. We're going to do our best to make that happen. So stay with us. Send us your thoughts, and if you want to participate, like I say, find your dad or your son, and we're good to go. All right. Goodbye.
That's all, folks.
Yeah, what he said.